We just fuck with each other. We're connected. We like playing together, so we just out there having fun. Don't worry about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally here. It's trade season, and the first trade has officially been made by the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications on this channel, and check out our podcast with Mike Korzemba and Get Like Coop, because we're about to get to 40K subscribers on the Laced Up podcast. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mike check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? It's been a very tough year to be a Los Angeles basketball fan, but let's put the Lakers aside for at least this video and let's discuss the Los Angeles Clippers, who are the main Los Angeles team because I consider the Lakers to be the other Los Angeles team. And in this instance, it seems like the Clippers are actually performing pretty well for a team that has recently been without Paul George and is without Kawhi Leonard for the entire season. As a matter of fact, there is probably no chance that Kawhi Leonard comes back. According to the Los Angeles Times, in this article, it states that after months of optimism that Kawhi Leonard could return from his torn ACL at some point this season for the Los Angeles Clippers, Tyronn Lue downplayed that possibility. The Clippers also have an uncertain situation with Paul George's elbow injury, which Lue alluded to. I think the biggest thing is with Kawhi being out all year and Paul George not knowing what's going to happen with Paul George. The hardest thing for players when your best two players are out is when you hear Kawhi is going to be out for a week or 3 days and you can muster that energy up. You can find a way to win games and continue to come in every single day and have positive vibes, according to Lue. But the enjoyment I get from this team, we know Kawhi's probably not going to come back, and we don't know the status of Paul George, but these guys continue to keep fighting every single night. And so that's kind of how I had to play. That's how I had to make it. So just seeing how these guys scrap and compete every night just makes me feel good. That's the enjoyment I get from coaching this team. So obviously a reporter asked Tyronn Lue to clarify on this comment about Kawhi Leonard not coming back this season. And Lue said he's not a doctor and his hope is stronger than fear. I'm hoping that these two guys can come back, but you never know, so that's all I gotta say, man. Now that's not stopping the Los Angeles Clippers from making a pretty gigantic trade, where they traded one of their greatest players in their franchise's history, Eric Bledsoe, aka Mini LeBron, Justice Winslow, who recently said that this team felt like family to him and that they mess with each other, and Keon Johnson and a future second-round pick to the Portland Trail Blazers for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. This is according to Adrian Wojnarowski. Now let's break this down from the Los Angeles Clippers perspective, shall we? The Los Angeles Clippers are all in on this core that they have built around Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. This is about getting them a significantly improved supporting cast. Yes, Norman Powell isn't necessarily a legitimate starting point guard that they were looking for over like the past 3 years, but he still is a remarkable player that shoots 41% from three and is averaging about 19 points per game off of 46% shooting. Norman Powell is a tremendous player to have on your roster, and he's locked in on a 5-year, $90 million contract, which, to be honest, isn't so bad for a player like Norman Powell. Robert Covington, on the other hand, is an expiring contract, and he has kind of been regressing ever since he went over to the Portland Trail Blazers. Prior to this, when he was on Houston, he was averaging at least double-digit points per game, and when he went to Portland, he started averaging single-digit points per game. His three-point percentage started to regress a little bit, but a lot of players on the Portland Trail Blazers began to regress a little bit ever since Chauncey Billups came in, except one person that we're about to mention very, very soon. Now, in the instance of Robert Covington, he has an opportunity for a change of scenery, can fill in a huge role for the Los Angeles Clippers because he brings defense no matter where he goes. He's been a positive DBPM player for the entirety of his career save for his rookie season, and there will always be a market for a player like Rocco. Maybe the Los Angeles Clippers could pull some salary cap magic, sign him in the offseason. Maybe he's not even looking for so much money in the offseason. After all, Los Angeles is a pretty nice place to live. You could ask Norman Powell. He went to UCLA, my alma mater, and is a LA native. So for the Los Angeles Clippers, I give this an A+, because in this instance, you need to do whatever it takes to improve your team. You don't have any draft capital. You want to make Paul George and Kawhi Leonard work out whenever they return from injury, whenever that might be. So this is a remarkable trade for the Clippers. Now for the Portland Trail Blazers, this trade is about one individual and one individual only. It's not about Damian Lillard. It's not about CJ McCollum. It's about Anthony Simons. This man has come out of nowhere and is absolutely tearing up the league this year. I mean, this guy is absolutely exciting. The Portland Trail Blazers started playing him 28 minutes per game as a result of the injuries that they've been sustaining all year to their star players, and they have been rewarded. Anthony Simons shooting 40% from three this year, averaging 16 points per game, 44% from the field, really is breaking out for the Trailblazers this year. Do they have something in him? Well, they do have enough in him to the point where they say, hey, we're overpaying Norman Powell. Let's get rid of this contract and take on Eric Bledsoe's contract, which is set to expire in the 2023 NBA season. Now, this sheds some salary for the Portland Trailblazers. This also kind of conveys that, hey, we might be rebuilding at this point, because it seems like they are. So something we have to keep an eye on next is who else could be sold at the trade deadline. Could we see CJ McCollum traded? Could we see Damian Lillard magically feeling better from an injury and getting traded? Who knows, because they said in the past that they want to build around Damian Lillard, and I don't really know about CJ McCollum, but I've said this many times on the Laced Up podcast. I think the Portland Trailblazers need to trade Damian Lillard, need to trade CJ McCollum, need to get as many assets in return for them as possible, maybe even tank it this year, because this year's NBA draft class is absolutely freaking loaded, bro. And I'm not trying to say this as a disrespectful thing towards Portland Trailblazers fans or Portland in general. I'm not trying to say that Damian Lillard is washed or is falling off. It's just, this is something I've said when the Houston Rockets had Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and unfortunately they don't watch my content. At least I'd assume they don't watch my content, although their ex-general manager follows me on Twitter. They ended up trading James Harden for a return that I feel like was less than what they could have got, and they traded Russell Westbrook to the Washington Wizards for John Wall, which they're not even playing John Wall right now. So the Portland Trailblazers are in a very similar situation with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Damian Lillard is signed to a nice contract right now. He is in his early 30s, but who knows how much longer he's going to be productive for. You clearly have some promising players on your roster. The draft class this year is really freaking good. It's time to move on from Dame and CJ and try to get a nice return for them before they start stamping their feet and say, hey, I demand you trade me. Although Damian Lillard doesn't really have leverage in that instance, because of course, Damian Lillard is already locked in on a contract with Portland, and he likes to remind us how loyal he is consistently. But I'm just saying, from the lens of what makes sense and what you should do in this instance, I think it's time. Let me know in the comment section down below what your grade is for this trade and what you guys think about this trade. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.